The air in my father's study hung heavy with the scent of power old books, polished mahogany, and the faint tang of leather that seemed to whisper of legacies I'd never inherit. I stood there, Natalie Johnson, 28 years old, watching the walls, rich and dark as secrets. Close in around me, my father's pen scratched across the paper, a sound sharper than it had any right to be, as if it were carving my name out of existence. He slid the stack across the desk with a finality that made my chest tighten. "There," he said, voice clipped. "It's done. The full $5 million trust fund goes to Teresa." Just like that. I was erased. I stood rooted to the spot, my hands clasped tightly behind me, as my sister Teresa lingered by the window, her silhouette framed against the late afternoon light. She half turned, a smirk flickering across her lips, though she tried to hide it. Her eyes gleamed with a victory she didn't need to voice. At 33, she was everything our parents revered a partner at Williams and Edwards, a lawyer draped in tailored suits and accolades. My mother, perched in the oversized leather chair behind me, let out a sigh, rehearsed and heavy. "If only you'd followed a traditional path. Natalie," she said, her words soft but cutting. "If you'd gone to law school like Teresa, applied yourself properly." "I did apply myself," I said, my voice low, steady, refusing to fracture under their scrutiny. I could feel my father's gaze sharpen, his chair creaking as he leaned forward. "Playing with computers in that cramped apartment isn't applying yourself," he snapped, his tone laced with disdain. "It's a hobby, not a future. Teresa's a partner at a top firm. You build websites for coffee shops and pet stores. You live in a shoebox in Manhattan." His words stung, but I didn't flinch. I could have told him then about the fintech platform I'd built from nothing. The algorithms humming in Silicon Valley's shadows, valued at $450 million. But I didn't. Their world of corner offices and framed degrees wouldn't understand. Teresa shifted, a fleeting softness in her eyes, the ghost of the sister who once shared late-night secrets. "Natalie," she began, but I raised a hand, cutting her off. "It's okay. Teresa, congratulations on the partnership. You earned it." I turned to the door, my mother's voice trailing after me. "Won't you join us for dinner? Your father booked Le Bernardin to celebrate." I paused, glancing at the walls lined with their achievements, none mine. "I have a meeting," I said, stepping out. The door closed behind me, and with it, a chapter I'd long outgrown. The city's pulse thrummed through the taxi's windows as I rode back to Manhattan, the hum of the engine a quiet counterpoint to the thoughts swirling in my mind. I wasn't angry, not even sad, just clear. Like the fog of my family's expectations had finally lifted. In their eyes, I was still the girl tinkering with code in a shoebox apartment. But they hadn't seen what I'd built. Natalie Johnson, was no longer their disappointment. I was the architect of something revolutionary. And tonight, I'd step back into the world where I belonged. My apartment door clicked shut behind me, and I kicked off my heels, the hardwood cool against my feet. The cramped space my father mocked opened into my home office, where 3 large screens glowed softly, alive with scrolling numbers and graphs. This was Atna Adaptive Trading Heuristics and Neural Analytics, my creation. A system that sifted through millions of data points in seconds to predict stock market movements with an accuracy no human trader could touch. It had outperformed traditional algorithms by 40% in our beta tests. And the word was spreading. I ran my fingers through my hair, letting the faint hum of the computers ground me. This was my empire, built line by line, while they dined at Le Bernardin, toasting a trust fund I didn't need. My phone buzzed on the desk, Sophia's name lighting up the screen. My CTO, brilliant and relentlessly optimistic, had texted VC meeting moved to tomorrow a.m. "You ready?" I smiled, typing back. "More than ready. Let's change the game." Sophia was the heart of our team, her faith in Atna as unwavering as mine. I pulled up our pitch deck, the slides crisp with data from our latest tests. Banks were already circling. whispering about early access to a system that could reshape finance. But I wasn't here for quick cash, I wanted control. Scale. Legacy. Another buzz interrupted my thoughts, a message from Teresa. Sorry about Dad. You know how he is. The trust fund doesn't matter. Right? You're fine with your computer stuff. Her words, meant to soothe, landed like a subtle jab. Computer stuff. As if I weren't rewriting the rules of wealth itself. I stared at the screen, then replied, Thanks. Teresa, enjoy your dinner. I set the phone down, refocusing on the pitch. Tomorrow wasn't just a meeting, it was a pivot point. Later, Sophia's face appeared on a video call, her usual energy tempered by concern. How'd it go with the family, she asked. I sighed, leaning back, as expected. Dad signed the trust fund over to Teresa. They're probably clinking glasses at Le Bernardin now. Sophia shook her head. Their loss. Ready to show those VCs what real success looks like? I nodded. Pulling up fresh test results, Atnay's predictions were tightening. Trends sharper than ever. Actually, I said, a spark igniting. What if we don't take their money? Sophia blinked. Wait, what? This is a $21 million deal at a $450 million valuation. I sat up straighter. That's small thinking. These results. We're ahead of the curve. If we go public in a year, we will keep control. Partnerships. Not cash. That's the play. Silence stretched. Then Sophia grinned. You don't want a company, you want an empire. I matched her smile. Exactly. And we're building it on our terms. The screens flickered. Numbers racing. Proof that my father's dismissal was just noise. The world hadn't seen the last of me, not even close. The Manhattan skyline glittered beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows of our new ATNA office. A sleek temple of glass and steel that felt like a declaration of arrival. I stood at the edge of the open-plan space, coffee in hand, watching our engineers hunch over laptops, their screens alive with ATNA's latest simulations. The air buzzed with focus, a quiet electricity that mirrored the city's pulse below. 5 months had passed since I walked out of my father's study, and in that time, we'd transformed from a whispered rumor in Silicon Valley to a force the financial world couldn't ignore. My decision to forego venture capital had sharpened our path. Partnerships, not payouts, were our currency now. And today, we'd test that gamble. Sophia bounded over. Tablet glowing with fresh data. You won't believe this, she said, her voice a mix of awe and urgency. Atna caught a spike in retail trading patterns last night, predicted a 3% jump in a mid-cap stock before the market opened. It was right. Down to the decimal. I leaned in. The numbers on her screen, a constellation of proof. Our system wasn't just forecasting trends, it was rewriting how markets breathed. Run it again, I said, and prep the demo. Goldman Sachs is here in an hour. Sophia nodded, already halfway back to her desk, but not before tossing me a grin that said we were on the cusp of something massive. Before I could follow, the intercom crackled. Ms. Johnson, a Mr. Mason Williams from Williams & Edwards is here, our receptionist said. My heart skipped. Teresa's law firm, the bastion of my family's ideals, had sent its senior partner unannounced. I straightened my blazer and met him in the conference room, where his silver hair and polished suit screamed, "Old money, Miss Johnson." He said, handshake firm. Our clients in finance are buzzing about Atna. We're here to explore partnerships. His charm was practiced, but I caught the flicker of surprise in his eyes. This wasn't the computer hobbyist he'd expected. Curious, I said, leaning back, my tone light but pointed. Does my sister know you're here? His smile faltered. Just for a second. Teresa. No, this is confidential. Though I was surprised to learn you're her sister. She's never mentioned you. The word stung. But I masked it with a half smile. She doesn't talk about me much. Let me guess she never mentioned a sister who plays with computers. He looked faintly embarrassed, and I let the moment hang before continuing. Atna isn't a side project. Mr. Williams. It's a system that sees what your clients can't. If you want a seat at this table, it's not about money, it's about access to your networks. He nodded, recalibrating. But before he could respond, Sophia poked her head in. Goldman's here. I stood, smoothing my skirt. I appreciate the visit. Mr. Williams. But I have another meeting. Our legal team will follow up if your firm is serious. His expression shifted at the mention of Goldman Sachs. A mental note scribbled behind his eyes. As he left, I felt a quiet thrill, not just at turning the tables on Teresa's world, but at the realization that we were no longer chasing validation. We were setting the terms. In the conference room, 5 Goldman executives waited, their polished demeanor barely masking their hunger for what AT&A could do. I stepped to the front, my voice steady. Ladies and gentlemen, sign these NDAs, and I'll show you how we're rewriting the rules of wealth. The room leaned forward, and I knew we'd already won. The AT&A office hummed with a new intensity, the kind that comes when the world starts watching. Our Manhattan headquarters, once a vision in my mind, now pulsed with engineers and analysts, their screens a mosaic of data that told a story no one else could read. Weeks after the Goldman demo, whispers about Aetna had turned into Aurora banks, hedge funds, even tech giants were circling, eager for a piece of our predictive power. But with attention came scrutiny, and as I stood by the window, watching dawn break over the financial district, I knew today would test us in ways no pitch deck could prepare for. Sophia burst through the door, her usual calm replaced by a barely contained excitement. "You need to see this," she said, thrusting her tablet at me. The screen showed AT&A's latest simulation. It had flagged a subtle shift in social media sentiment, cross-referenced it with trading anomalies, and predicted a Morgan Stanley merger 3 days before it hit the news. If we'd been alive, Sophia said, voice trembling with awe, we'd have made billions. I squinted at the numbers, my pulse quickening. "Is this verified?" I asked. She nodded, triple-checked. "All public data, no insider info. Aetna just connects the dots better than anyone." I exhaled, the weight of it sinking in. We weren't just ahead of the curve, we were redrawing it. But brilliance invites questions. And Jonathan, our head of legal, confirmed the next hurdle. "The SEC wants a meeting next week," he said over a call, his tone measured but urgent. "They're intrigued by our compliance framework, but want to understand Aetna before it disrupts markets." I nodded, unsurprised. A system this powerful would raise eyebrows, and I welcomed the chance to prove we played clean, set it up. I said, "Let's show them we're not just innovative, we're untouchable." Jonathan chuckled, a rare crack in his stoic facade. "They're not ready for you." Amid the whirlwind, my phone buzzed with a message from Teresa. "Hey, parents are worried. Your old number doesn't work. Everything okay?" I smiled at the irony. My old number belonged to the apartment I'd left behind, replaced by this $55 million tower 6 blocks from Wall Street. To them, I was still tinkering in a shoebox. "I'm fine. Just busy with work," I replied, my focus already back on the SEC prep. Their world felt like a distant echo, drowned out by the rhythm of our mission. The industry's hunger for AT&A grew insatiable. After Goldman signed on, JP Morgan and Citi reached out, their offers laced with promises of exclusive access. I met each with the same response: partnerships, not control. "We don't need your capital," I told a Citi exec over coffee, my voice calm but firm. "We need your networks to scale faster on our terms." He blinked, unused to being dictated to, but nodded. The deals we struck weren't just contracts, they were bridges to a future we'd architect ourselves. As the SEC meeting loomed, I gathered the team in the war room, whiteboards scribbled with compliance protocols. "They'll come at us hard," I said, scanning their faces, "not because we're wrong, but because we're first. Show them Aetna's clean, and we'll walk out as pioneers." Sophia raised her coffee mug, a mock toast. To rewrite history, the room laughed. But the stakes were real. That night, alone in my office, I watched the city's lights flicker. a reminder of how far we'd come and how much further we'd go. The SEC wasn't a threat, it was a stage, and I was ready to take the spotlight. The New York Stock Exchange loomed before me, its marble facade a monument to wealth and ambition. Yet today it felt like a stage set for my story. Dawn painted the sky in streaks of gold as I stepped from the car, the air crackling with anticipation. Reporters swarmed the entrance, their cameras flashing like fireflies, their voices a chorus of speculation about ATNA's $900 million valuation. I smoothed the collar of my tailored Chanel suit, the Wall Street Journal tucked under my arm, its headline screaming, ATNA to launch biggest tech IPO of the year. The SEC meeting had come and gone, our compliance framework earning nods of approval. And now, months of partnerships and sleepless nights converged on this moment. I wasn't just here to ring a bell, I was here to rewrite the rules of the game. Inside, the trading floor buzzed with an electric fervor, traders and bankers orbiting our team like planets drawn to a new sun. Sophia met me at the entrance, her usual hoodie traded for a sharp blazer, her eyes alight with pride. Atna's running like a dream, she whispered, leaning in, real-time predictions at 98% accuracy. The floor's on fire. I nodded, my gaze sweeping the room, landing on the front row where my family sat. My father's face was a tapestry of emotions, pride warring with regret, confusion softening into awe. My mother dabbed her eyes, overwhelmed, while Teresa stared, her polished lawyer's mask replaced by something raw, like she was seeing me for the first time. As I passed, my father stood, his voice low. We had no idea. The words hung heavy. An admission years in the making. I met his eyes. My response steady, unyielding. You never asked. Before he could reply, the exchange president called me to the podium. The room falling silent, I stepped forward. The weight of every late night, every doubted line of code, settling into my bones. 4 years ago, I began, my voice clear, resonant. I was coding in a tiny Manhattan apartment. People laughed, called it a waste of time. They saw a hobby. I saw the future. The crowd leaned in, hanging on my words. Today, Atna processes more market data in a second than Wall Street could analyze in a month. It doesn't just react, it understands. And this, I said, pausing to meet my father's gaze, is only the beginning. The bell rang. A clarion call that echoed through the hall. The big board lit up, Atna's stock price flashing, then soaring past projections. Cheers erupted. A tidal wave of sound traders high-fived. Team members hugged. Some even cried. My stake in the company, now worth $450 million, dwarfed the trust fund my father had given away. But the money wasn't the victory. It was this standing here. Seen, undeniable, proving not them wrong. But myself, right? Reporters surged forward, shouting questions. Youngest female CEO to take a company public, one called. A new era in trading tech. Another echoed. I smiled, letting the moment wash over me. A tide I'd earned. As the ceremony wound down, I caught Sophia's eye across the room. She mouthed, "We did it." And I nodded, the weight of our shared vision grounding me. My family lingered nearby, their presence a quiet question mark. But I wasn't ready to answer, not yet. The trading floor still hummed, the numbers still climbed, and I stood at the center, not just a CEO, but a force who'd turned a dream into a global reckoning. This wasn't the end. It was the spark of something even greater. The private room at Le Bernardin glowed with candlelight, its elegance a far cry from the sterile study where my journey began. I sat at the head of the table, the clink of wine glasses and murmur of laughter weaving a warmth I hadn't expected. My team mingled with my family, the air thick with celebration. But beneath it, a current of unfinished business. The IPO's success still pulsed in my veins. Athéné's stock had closed at double our projected value, making me a billionaire by day's end. Yet as I watched my father try to explain my triumph to his country club friends, pride tangled with awkwardness. I realized the true victory lay not in numbers, but in what came next. Teresa approached me. Her lawyer's poise softened by a humility I hadn't seen before. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice catching. "I looked into Atna after Mason's visit. I bought stock in every partner you signed. I believed in you, even if I didn't say it." Her confession hung between us, a bridge over years of distance. I smiled, gently but firmly. "You saw what you wanted to see, like they all did, but there's room for you now." Her eyes widened. "Wait, are you offering me a job?" I leaned in, a spark of mischief in my voice, a chance to build something bigger than both of us, ready to dive into computer stuff. "Sis," she laughed, a sound of relief, and nodded. My parents joined us, my mother's eyes still misty. "We're family," she said softly. "We should have supported you." My father, usually so commanding, managed only a respectful nod, his silence louder than any apology. I stood, raising my glass. "You're right. We are family. That's why I reserved this room tonight. Let's celebrate what we've all built." The irony wasn't lost on my father, his face twitching as he recalled dismissing me here months ago. Now, he lifted his glass, a quiet acknowledgement of the empire I'd forged. Later, at Atina Tower, I walked through the lobby, the logo gleaming above like a beacon. A young intern sat cross-legged on a bench, typing code on her laptop, her focus a mirror of my years ago. I paused, struck by the echo. "Keep at it," I said, smiling. "The biggest stories start in the smallest spaces." She looked up, recognition dawning. "I read about you, how you built this from nothing. My parents think coding's a dead end." I nodded, seeing myself in her defiance. Mine did too. "Hold that vision. They'll read your story soon enough." In the elevator, rising to my office, I thought of legacy, not the kind handed down, but the kind carved from doubt and dreams. Atiena wasn't just changing markets, it was a testament to what happens when you believe in the impossible. As the doors opened, the city sprawled below, a canvas of light and possibility. I'd built this, line by line, choice by choice, and in doing so, I'd shown the world that the truest success is the one you claim for yourself.